So what if your life was systematically deconstructed and turned against you, or a secret you didn't know you had? Well, that's what Will Smith faces as he teams up with Gene Hackman in a Tony Scott film, Enemy of the State. Outside Washington, D.C., Congressman Phil Hammersley is pressured by Thomas Reynolds, Assistant Director of the National Security Agency, to allow a controversial privacy bill to be passed. This would afford the NSA much wider sweeping surveillance access into the privacy of the American people. Yet when Hammersley stands firm in his opposition, Reynolds orders his assassination, which is then staged as a fatal car accident by way of a heart attack. Meanwhile, Baltimore labor lawyer Robert Clayton Dean works a union case against racketeer Paulie Pintero, leveraging a videotape of him socializing with union officials, a clear violation of his parole. Yet despite Pintero's intimidation tactics, Dean will not give up where he got the tape from. In truth, it was obtained by way of old flame Rachel Banks and her mysterious surveillance contact Brill. Yet Robert Dean's life is soon to be thrown upside down. Daniel Zavis, an old friend from Georgetown University and wildlife biologist, discovers he accidentally caught footage of the assassination of the congressman on his video camera. This makes him a marked man as Reynolds' team hunts him down to cover up their crime. When Zavis inadvertently runs into Dean, he slips the video storage card into his shopping bag, yet shortly thereafter, Daniel is killed while trying to elude the NSA gunman. However, Reynolds and his team soon zero in on the lawyer, analyzing video surveillance and financial records. After questioning him gets them nowhere, they ransack his home, but find nothing. Yet they successfully bug his entire home and personal effects, intent on tracing his every move to lead them to the incriminating evidence. However, fearing what Dean might do with the video, Reynolds forces a preemptive smear campaign to discredit him. As Dean's career and marriage disintegrate, he pushes Rachel to set up a meet with Brill, but even the NSA swerve him with a decoy who tries to kill him. When the real Brill finally surfaces, it becomes a tenuous alliance as Brill fears exposure by the NSA. Yet when Rachel is found dead with Dean framed for her murder, the two men soon realize the conspiracy they're caught up in. While dodging gunfire and explosions across Baltimore, Dean and Brill formulate a plan to weaponize surveillance against Reynolds' team and find a way out from underneath their lethal corruption. So Enemy of the State saw its US theatrical debut on November 20th, 1998, reuniting producer Jerry Bruckheimer and director Tony Scott, who along with the late Don Simpson had produced many blockbuster-scale films such as Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, and Crimson Tide, and with this endeavor, they reteamed with Touchstone Pictures, who gave them a $90 million budget with a major return on investment, $250.8 million grossed at the worldwide box office. They're making sure that Jerry Bruckheimer would continue on as one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood, and Tony Scott is one of the most respected action directors in the field. But the way this came up and be developed is very interesting because the actual credited screenwriter on the film is David Marconi, who doesn't have a whole lot of stuff to his name. Like he has a Telebreak credit back on G.I. Joe, The Real American Hero. Did a couple of things in the 90s. He kind of wrote and directed some things. Not a whole lot here and there. Then after this, he's got a story credit on Live Free or Die Hard. Then he had worked on the screenplay for the Jackie Chan film The Foreigner in 2017. So he pops up every now and then. There's not like a consistent kind of output of anything in that regard. So it's a very interesting thing. But apparently, there were uncredited rewrites done by a number of different screenwriters who appeared on an early poster of the film, probably before the WGA made the final rulings about who would actually get the credit for the whole thing. And apparently, one of the rewrites were done by Aaron Sorkin, one of the most celebrated screenwriters in the history of Hollywood. And there's another one with Henry Bean teamed up with Tony Gilroy, who's also become one of the biggest names in the field. So, interesting how these guys contributed. We don't know what they did on the entire screenplay here. They could have just touched up some dialogue, brushed up some concepts here and there. There's not really a specific thing to figure out what they did. Apparently, they didn't do nearly enough to get their own credit on the film, so Marconi gets the main thing, and these guys probably came in and
did a little touch-ups here and there and everywhere, but nothing really stands out as like, that's Aaron Sorkin here, or that's something else here, that's here, there, or whatnot. Doesn't feel like a patchwork. Feels very consistent under the helm of Tony Scott in this whole thing, but it's a nice type of point in time for a film like this, talking about privacy and surveillance, which become much more prevalent in the decades after this. But like, it's right after the dawn of the internet stuff, getting a lot of people online, all that kind of, that cyber interconnectivity is really kind of catching on, so it can become a topical type of thing for a story to kind of latch on, to kind of deal with it, kind of look into and all that type of stuff. So it's an interesting way how that entire screenplay came together with those very kind of timely ideas that definitely were ahead of their time, and showing a lot of the reviews of the time. And certainly probably after, even a couple years after this, the film maybe felt a tad bit preposterous in some places. Like, you really can't do that in the film. There's like, there's still some stuff that's like, okay, that's a little straining of credibility that you could do that much. And really kind of meld it down as like, that's evidence in certain ways. But a lot of stuff in the entire film has definitely become like, well, that's fairly believable now. It feels almost slightly quaint in some ways in that regard, but it's become such a topical thing in decades after this that Michigan State does have a lot of things to say for itself that really kind of handles the test of time. But you're talking about Tony Scott here, and this is a guy that, even in his time, I don't think he really got as much credit as we kind of give him now, in retrospect, because a lot of people kind of looked at his films like they're all like big style and not a lot of substance. Some of his films, you could say that in certain places here and there, but there's some other things that he's done throughout the entire career. He did have the release show through that this guy really delivers some great popcorn films that had a lot of extra stuff beyond just like the shallow fluff and whatnot. And there's some things he had some good handles on. Being the younger brother of Ridley Scott, definitely had the handle on all the visual stuff, very much from a strong marketing background and all that type of stuff, but really could find some things that had a lot of grit to them, a lot of interesting ideas to dig into and stuff like that, and they kind of dabbled around maybe like Oliver Stone taking on the film, but Bruckheimer really wanted to work with Tony Scott again because they had such a successful relationship overall, and just like they just worked so very well. And you could kind of tell when Tony Scott in the early 90s kind of went off and worked on other people, like The Last Boy Scout, or he's working on True Romance, and these things weren't terribly as successful, and some of the things he didn't have was as good of a working relationship with certain producers here and there, such as Joel Silver. But once he got back with Bruckheimer, and got back with Simpson, stuff like that, like this just clicked into place, and it worked so very well. And then Bruckheimer continued to produce a number of his films throughout the rest of his career, so it's just like it's such a great working relationship that just works so nicely. And Tony Scott films are so very well known for being very vibrant, splashy films, so much in that regard. But I like with Enemy of State, he kind of approaches it a little bit differently. He kind of dials it back a little bit, kind of changes it from a very splashy, colorful, vibrant thing to a little bit more of a muted tone. It kind of grasps the kind of more somber, urgent feeling in the entire film so much. I like the fact that there's a little bit more of that weight to the visuals in that regard, how it brings all that stuff out, and so much to the benefit of his cinematographer, Dan Mindell, who actually came out through Ridley Scott. He worked on the camera department. He worked second unit director on G.I. Jane and stuff like that. So a little bit at a time, he brought himself up and then debuted as a cinematographer with this film. And him and Tony just really make it so very good, because Tony had that kind of great high contrast, kind of magazine-ready, splashy look to it. I love the fact that even like dialogue scenes, there's such an attention to detail of the lighting to create a mood, an atmosphere overall, how it lays against the background and all that type of stuff, create that depth of field and all that type of stuff. Like, such a great attention to all that little bit of a quality to make sure that all the money and the time they put into the film shows up on screen. And when you get into all these other sequences, that just creates such that big screen feel for it, just the kineticism he has with so much the action in the film, which I'll discuss much more later on, but it maintains Tony Scott's signature slick polish overall with these very dynamic camera angles, all these little things, like some shots that are showing up like a second or so in an action scene, they still look so intriguing on their own. They could just pin up these frames on the wall and whatnot and really get a great sensibility about the time and effort they put into every little bit in the entire film, and just the kineticism, all the camera work and the editing, all that type of stuff. Just like what they do with the action sequences really just keeps it on a level that just continues to drive the narrative, drive the urgency. All these little things, like, just has all those great elements of just seeing like you got Tony Scott there. He knows exactly what he's looking for, and he knows how to get the cinematographer to understand what he's going for and how to achieve that and how to bring that forward. So a great marriage, and they would work together again on Spy Game and Domino, stuff like that. But certainly, Dan Mandel definitely showed a very great quality debuting here with Tony Scott, creating an excellent looking film, and just the fact that Scott brings that more serious quality to the film. He kind of approaches it. We're giving that weight and levity back and forth. He knows how to make that balance, how to make the levity work for the drama, because as you bring in a little bit of levity here and there to endear the characters to the audience, it creates an emotional bond, a connection with the characters. And so as the drama and the stakes and the urgency and all that type of stuff builds up the film, you care more about these characters. So he knows how to bring the levity in to enhance the drama overall and wrap that up in the entire film that makes it so entertaining. Because you could have a really heavy film where it's like it never really kind of lets up and no one really kind of brings forth that levity of humanity in that regard and kind of really drains a lot of stuff out of it. He knows you need those little sprinkles of things here and there to really kind of bring the characters to life and draw the audience into the entire proceedings of the whole thing. So as the emotions kind of go off here and there, you really get connected to everything that's happening throughout the entire narrative. It keeps the audience hooked in, and then you gross $250 million worldwide. So Tony Scott knew exactly what he was doing with big blockbuster filmmaking to make everything look fantastic, and so bring forth the qualities of the storytelling and the characters' entertainment value to wrap it up in a fantastic package. And principal photography of the film actually took place in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles, California between mainly January and April of 1998. Now, a lot of things kind of went wrong in the production. Like I said, very smooth production for Jerry Bruckheimer in that regard, but Tony Scott kind of liked finding all these different locations in Baltimore that really had never seen on screen before, so it's a very much exciting experience for him. And they also brought in 2 former NSA agents to do some technical consulting on the film, kind of look through the script and kind of like make notes about certain tech that the NSA actually used and what they could integrate into the script. So interesting everything, because the actual NSA refused to be involved with the entire film because obviously they don't want all their secrets kind of falling out here, there, and everywhere. But it's a nice type of thing to kind of grab a little bit more of that reality and kind of integrate it in some places here and there on the entire film. So nice type of thing in that regard. But the cast of this film is really remarkable in so many different ways. And we really have to talk about Will Smith at this point in time. Like 1998, he's the hottest thing on the market. This is after Fresh Prince of Bel-Air has had his entire run. He's on Bad Boys, Independence Day, Men in Black. This guy is a bona fide movie star and actually took a bit of a pay cut, kind of a lower fee, because he wanted to work with Gene Hackman. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? He's a screen legend. It was a great type of thing to have him kind of, after he did all these kind of mainly bigger kind of action-y popcorn films, where it's a little bit more comedic and loose and stuff like that, kind of approach a little more dramatic role. And he had a little bit of a problem kind of restraining some of the comedic sensibilities by himself when he could do like a little ad-lib here or there. But like I said, adding a little bit of that levity kind of aids to making the characters more endearing and connecting with them in a certain way, and kind of have that character come out more in different ways. So it's a nice type of thing to get that in there. But Will Smith really delivers as the role of Robert Dean here. It's a great type of thing. Seeing him work this role where everything around him is gradually being dismantled around him. Everything's deteriorating as the NSA starts pulling his life apart here and there and starting turning things against him and digging up secrets and kind of manufacturing the truth and kind of smear campaign preemptively of what they think he has, whether or not he knows he has it whatsoever. So Smith just shows such a great aptitude of just, again, bringing forth that captivating, gripping quality of the drama and the emotion that he has in certain sequences where he has to kind of fight off the accusations going against him. So it's like, I like the fact that he's a bit more of a complex character. I like the entire relationship he has with Lisa Bonet's character of Rachel Banks, because their boyfriend, girlfriend back in Georgetown, they lived together for a while, things broke up, then he got married to Carla over there, and then Reggie had an affair with Rachel Banks, and then there was a marriage counseling and stuff like that. So it's complicated. It's all kind of interwoven and kind of shady and stuff like that. So there's always a little bit of a question here or there about the relationship he has with her, and she plays it wonderfully. She's so good in the film with the chemistry and the lived experience she feels with Will Smith in those scenes. You feel the weight of that emotional complication whenever the two of them are in the same scene together, where she does have a affection for him. She does still love him to a certain degree, but it's all kind of tangled up in mess. So it's a great type of thing. And of course, Regina King does a fabulous job as Carla, being this very alpha woman in the entire family in that regard. It's like, she's the one who's going to win the arguments most of the times. And just like there's a great relationship that kind of push and pull back and forth between the two of them, and a little bit of reconciliation every so often as things kind of get strained, kind of get pulled back in and stuff like that. I love just the ebbs and flows between all three of these people in the entire cast, and just it's such a great thing to see Will Smith tackle a role this kind of somewhat early in his kind of big blockbuster career, and have something a little bit more to chew on, to kind of have a little bit more dynamics to kind of play off of here or there. And he's totally up to the task. Is so absolutely fantastic here. You can definitely see why he would start to kind of get an appetite for that kind of more dramatic stuff. He goes off and does stuff like Ali and 7 Pounds and Pursuit of Happiness and all these little things here and there, gradually trying to chase that Oscar thing, which ended up in a very different result for him in recent years. But in this film, he's top class, top quality, shows his value overall. They can take on the challenge of a role like this and still deliver something that is absolutely top grade in that regard. But Gene Hackman, just one of the finest American actors there ever has been. Just like his body of work just speaks for himself in volumes. And before I get too much into the thing, I like the fact of the stunt casting they do when they try to throw off Robert Clayton Dean. They have Gabriel Byrne come in and make him believe he's Brill. It's a great piece of work. It's like, it could be Gabriel Byrne. You could believe that. Nice established star, good pedigree behind him. It could be very splashy sort of casting in that regard. And of course, gets revealed, this guy ain't the real Brill. All the type of stuff. Then Hackman comes in and just owns the role so much. I like the fact that they actually, it's a nice type of thing, because they're originally kind of courting Sean Connery for the role. But he didn't take it, and like Hackman, because Tony Scott already worked with Hackman on Crimson Tide beautifully, they wanted Hackman. And so much the thing that it was such a extension of his character from the Conversations of Francis Ford Coppola film from the 70s, very much as Valen's expert in that regard. And you could really kind of take that kind of character and kind of transplant him a little bit into this film. Kind of take that idea of that character and kind of make him like kind of a spiritual extension of the entire film. And just like Hackman, just, he's so good. I love the fact that you get Hackman on the film and just like it just brings everything else up. Like you want to work at the level that he's working at. When he's bringing that kind of conviction, that intensity, that kind of psychology into a scene. When Will Smith is working opposite him, Will Smith says like it kind of forced him to kind of ring it up in that regard. So it's like it just, that's the quality of Hackman. He just brings so much of that to the screen and to the set in that regard. But I like what he does with the character of Brill here, because he's such that, as we end up learning the backstory much later in the film, there's a guy who worked for the NSA, loved doing his work, but a certain job went kind of awry, and they had to kind of cut him loose because, like, we have to have sort of a plausible deniability about what happened in this whole thing, so they had to cut him loose. But he made a promise to his friend, his partner in the whole thing, that if something bad happened to one of us, we would take care of the other's family. So he became responsible for Rachel Banks, and so it's a great story in that regard. How he has become this guy who's had to abandon everything in his life. He's kind of had to live in this kind of hole in the wall type of thing. He works in this big kind of mesh cage or whatnot to kind of keep all the outside world from peering in about what he does. And so he's kind of a crusted over character. It takes a little bit to kind of chip away at what he is to get away from the hardened quality about the character. He's a little bit more disconnected from people. There's only like one person he really cared about. And at a certain point in the film, she's been killed. She's become a collateral damage over this entire smear campaign against Robert Clayton Dean, the whole thing. So it's a great performance he really puts on the whole thing. It's like not one of his best overall, but he still brings forth what Gene Hackman needs to bring forth in a film to give it that weight, that credibility, that captivating essence overall, while still having a little bit of a wit to him here and there. I like the quality that, I mean, him and Smith got great chemistry overall. Even though they share like maybe a core of the film together, they still spark it off, and just such good stuff. And just like Tony Scott just makes everyone feel very comfortable on set. Really trying to create that kind of atmosphere to bring forth the best qualities of his actors to make sure everyone feels welcome, feels energized, feels enabled to do things, and just having guys like Will Smith, Gene Hackman, of course, John Voight in the film, portraying Thomas Reynolds, this kind of guy who's got a lot more political aspirations as part of the NSA and kind of going off and assassinating congressmen and kind of cover it all up and all these other things and going very much in radical directions. Like, Voight does a great job of the entire role. It's an interesting type of thing because he started playing kind of villains at this point in time. He started off in Mission Impossible playing the villain, Jim Phillips in that regard. Then this little role he did in a film that came out a year before this. I felt this was a better version of what that film ended up being. It was a Keenan Ivory Wayans action film called Most Wanted, where he's kind of playing a similar type of role. It's kind of this military guy who gets set up for an assassination. He has to go on the run. He's kind of conspiracy type of thing. And John Voight's the bad guy at the head of the entire conspiracy. So it's kind of easily transitioning to this whole film, which I definitely feel, as I watched this film much more recently than that one, this is definitely the stronger film in that regard. And just like, Voight does a really good job as this really cutthroat type of guy who's very cunning, very intelligent. But it does take a lot of brash things, like he's like immediately, because there's fear and paranoia there. And that's such a great theme of the entire film, how this entire surveillance state type of idea is kind of permeating through the politics and the agendas in the entire film. He's as afraid of being found out as anyone else is. And all that type of stuff, so it's like it motivates his actions to take much more radical steps. Like, he doesn't know for certain that Robert Clayton Dean knows what he has. He knows anything at all, but he goes directly to the worst case scenario, and we had to actively smear his name, discredit him, before you have any clue that he even has anything at all to hold against them. It's the mere idea of it that makes him paranoid, and it's great to have that as a villain in this story overall that's obsessed with this lack of privacy and this invasion of surveillance, all the type of stuff. So it's like a great type of thing. Just it all swirls around this character so much, and he just has great that command of the screen so much that feels very severe. I like the fact that he does feel, without having to really pull the trigger that often himself, he feels very deadly and dangerous. Like, this guy's already on the edge of doing very bad things, and ain't gonna take much to push him even further off the edge. So when he gets up towards the end of the film and he just pulls a gun and shoots Brill because he just needs to know where the hell this tape is that they're holding over him, I love the entire thing of what Voight brings to the entire role, because it's very intense and very potent and very convincing on his level. So a great thing in that regard. And there's a hell of a supporting cast in this film. Like, the young actors in this film are out of control. Even back in the day, it's like there are just a couple of rising stars you notice when you watch this film. You got like Seth Green and Jamie Kennedy and Jack Black, and you've got Barry Pepper here, and you've got Jason Lee as Daniel Zavitz, and you have all these other people in the entire film, Scott Kahn, Jake Busey. Like, it's great. The casting director on this film did a fantastic job. Like, you found every like hot up and coming person, even though maybe some didn't end up being as hot later on, but in the moment of 1998, all these guys was like very much on the map to be very strong rising stars, and just filled out this entire NSA team with these guys. Like, it's great. I love watching these guys back in the day. They're all hitting their marks exactly at the money, and a little character here and there as well. So like, they're all up to the task. They're all energetic in the roles, and I even love Tom Sizemore. I love 90s Tom Sizemore. Anyone who's watched this channel long enough knows I love Point Break. I love him in Heat, Strange Days, even The Red. Like, I kind of like him as well. Like, he was doing hot work in the 90s, and him playing Pintero, the mafioso who's being kind of pinned in a corner about having these associations with the union, where he's kind of on parole to not associate with those people, is so good in the role. As this kind of Italian mafioso is just like, he's intimidating as living hell. He's scary in some places, like when you're facing off with him and Smith, or later on in the film with him and Voight. Oh man, he's bringing so much juice to the table. I love getting 90s Thomas Sizemore. He did such great work in that decade, and this is no different. And that's also a takeoff from work with Tony Scott on True Romance as a cop in the whole film. So great type of thing. Like, it's such a fantastically strong cast you brought together in the whole thing. Just everyone nails roles left, right, and center under Tony Scott's fantastic direction here. But moving on, the score here, composed by Trevor Rabin and Harry Gregson-Williams, and it's an interesting fusion of their different styles, because Rabin come from a prog rock background. He was in the band Yes, up until a few years before this, and kind of moved into film composing a little bit. And so it's a little bit of that kind of electronic, kind of prog rock kind of feel to it. But Gregson-Williams had come up underneath the tutelage of Hans Zimmer, so it's very much that kind of orchestral bombast overall, the kind of underlying orchestral sensibility of the whole thing. So it's a nice kind of marriage between the two different flavors overall. You can kind of hear the electronic stuff coming in with some rhythms and stuff like that here and there, with some odd kind of electronic sounds here and there, kind of maybe a little bit reminiscent of the Eric Serra score for like GoldenEye or some other things here or there. But Gregson-Williams brings in that kind of classical orchestral flavor to kind of bring up the kind of thrilling compositions you have when the action kind of starts building up in the entire film and the danger gets higher and higher. So it's not a score that kind of stands out too much, but I think it complements the film exactly the way it needs to, and it seems to be completely unavailable now. It's not on CD anymore. I can't find it on digital services in the US, or some things that come up. I think they're in kind of like international territories maybe for Apple Music and Spotify, but I could not find them on the US versions of their services. So it's a little hard to find here and there, and some of the CDs go for a little bit of a increased price. So if you're very much interested in it, might take a little working to kind of get a good price on the whole thing, but there are several tracks up on YouTube to listen to for free in that regard. But it's a nice little score that does the things it needs to complement what this thriller really needs in the whole thing. But in that regard, the action is so much of what Tony Scott so very well excels at, because I like the fact you watch this film and there's like very kinetic stuff going on with the edits and all the type of stuff, but even though you got a lot of quick edits here and there, a lot of dynamic shots, never lose the clarity of what you're looking at. You understand every single shot conveys exactly what it needs to. Who's doing what and who's doing what to who, and where each person is in relation to one another. You see every little thing easily put together. It's like these are well storyboarded ideas to construct every single shot in a sequence to make sure everything moves from one point to the next very clearly, even though you got a lot of, like I said, very tight edits on the whole thing, and it's constructed so very well that you understand what you're going through with every single action sequence you have in the film. Like, it's so well put together. All the different elements between the visuals and the sound design and the music, all the things come together to create a package that drives the narrative forward. We have those moments of absolute, imminent danger and urgency in the entire film. You feel those stakes. It's all very well done, and it just aids to the propulsion of the film, the excitement you have in these sequences. Like, you just feel it. Every single thing, and never outstays its welcome. Everything is exactly the length it needs to inject that adrenaline when you need it to, but continue to move the story forward. Nothing's overlong. Nothing outstays its welcome. It's like it's never worn out. I just love all the things you have in the entire thing. Like the explosion you have when Brill's been compromised because Robert Dean, he went off and made a phone call, and they traced everything to the convenience store and all the type of stuff. And they got the make and model of the car, and they got all the stuff on Brill, the face recognition, all this type of stuff, and like all deconstructed for that one little liberty he makes in the whole thing. And then it's like, I'm compromised. They found my place, my equipment, all the different things. So he blows up the whole place because he made a phone call. It's a great comedic moment in that whole thing, but I love the fact that the behind the scenes, the whole thing, like Tony Scott didn't want to slow down the action to watch the building slowly crumble underneath the explosion, and so they went off and did a bunch of partitions in the building as they wired it up. So when it all blows up, it just collapses on itself in one motion in that regard. So Tony Scott just knew everything, and he employed the absolute best in the field to make sure all the stuff came together. Even the stunt team, I was surprised by some names in the stunt team on this whole thing, such as Kane Hodder, who is well known for his work in the Friday the 13th franchise and made horror and action films as a stuntman, and Jeff Amata. This guy has racked up over 200 stunt credits over 40 years working with Richard Donner, John Carpenter, Michael Mann, working alongside Stallone and Van Damme and Harrison Ford and Wesley Snipes. Just like, he's worked with just about anyone who's worth a damn in the field. So like, Tony Scott employed the best guys in the field, and you could see it through everything went off. All the pyrotechnics, all the gunplay, all the stunts that go off in the entire film. Like, it's just such fantastic work overall. Everything delivers so much on the momentum of the film that keeps propulsing itself forward. All the different wonderful, inventive, and smart sequences that stem out from the screenplay. Because I like so much the story, how it works with the themes of the surveillance state, and the idea of how much privacy is too much and how much is not enough, and how much the government is allowed to peek in on what you're doing for the sake of national security, which is, like I said, still become even bigger prevalent idea through the last several decades, and probably still debated in many sectors today. But the fact that it was like kind of on the pulse at that point in time, where it hadn't quite gotten to its full maturation point, it's interesting they kind of picked up on that very early in the entire interconnected internet age, stemming out from all the type of stuff there. So it's like, it's a great thing. And how the fact that everything weaves together in the story, because you got the entire thing of Jon Voight's character of Reynolds. He's been lobbying with this congressman to kind of put this legislation through, and that's about the surveillance state, all the type of stuff, give us more access. But then the murder, the assassination is caught on a surveillance tape, and all the type of stuff, and it's all the stuff that goes into the privacy of tearing some man's life apart. Then they kind of eventually turn it back around on Reynolds. Dean and Brill kind of go off and kind of do a certain thing where they kind of like, it's almost like Vietnam to a certain degree, how he says like the smaller force kind of takes over the larger force by the fact that it's almost like a war of attrition type of thing. As they grow weaker by using up more of the resources, we grow stronger by adapting their stuff to our stuff and using it against them. I love these little ideas, how it goes along, and it keeps swirling back around. How they bug the other congressman, and they bug Reynolds' house, and all that type of stuff. It's playing this little game that's very psychological, and saying like, oh, we got back up on you, or won up on you again. You thought we were down and out and stuff like that. You had us on the back foot. Well, now who's on the back foot now? It's one of these interesting little things. And the fact that even the thing with Pintero, the fact there was a videotape of him associating with these union officials that he's not supposed to be associating with because of his parole. Again, this is another piece of surveillance. It's another little thing that came up from Brill that ties back in the whole thing. I love the fact that it's like all the stuff dovetails by the end of the film. Whereas like there's that miscommunication. They don't know one side, Reynolds' side doesn't know what Pintero's side is really all about here. Pintero thinks you're the guy who made the tape about me and the union officials. Then Reynolds thinks you're the guy with the tape showing off the assassination. I love how Robert Clayton Dean, Will Smith's character, plays them back and forth, and he kind of jockeys the situation a little bit, kind of smudging some of the edges of the conversation around because of the kind of hot tempers and the urgency of the entire situation here. You can kind of jockey it around a little bit to kind of keep the truth of each side obscured from one another and play them off one another. It's a really nice sequence. I love the fact that it's smart. It's a very smart thriller. Clever turns, ways it uses the themes of the story to twist around back and forth on the entire thing. Even though the climax is a little bit of a takeoff from True Romance, where all these guys kind of funnel into this one place, and they're all these different sides playing against one another, and they all get shot up and blown apart and all that type of stuff back and forth. It's still well done because it's a smart way of putting the entire threads of the entire story together, tie it all together at the end of the film. It's just a clever type of thing for Robert Clayton Dean to kind of pick it up at a point where Brill's kind of exhausted everything he could possibly do against these guys. It's like, what's a tape you want? This guy has a tape. I can kind of fool all you guys around to kind of put you guys in this pressure cooker, and kind of hopefully I'll come out unscathed in the whole thing. But it's a really, really smartly done sequence, even though it does, again, has been commented on about the fact that it is a little bit of a takeoff on that ending of True Romance. It's still smartly done. It's still really well done. Like, it's such a satisfying thriller. I'm not going to say it's the best Tony Scott film. I think that's probably a little bit more up for debate, but it's a good film. It shows all the elements of what made Tony Scott such a good filmmaker. He can grasp the material, find the tones he needs to, makes a fantastically looking film that really just makes you want to see it on a big screen. It's just like easily well-oiled machine with Bruckheimer. Just such a great thing. I mean, when you saw a Bruckheimer film, you could see and feel the money on the screen every single time. It would be an absolute experience you'd want to see on the big screen, and Enemy of the State is no different for me. I just think it's a really well done film, even though there is an extended cut of the film they put out on DVD. This is back when the original DVD was non-anamorphic. It was probably just a port of the Laserdisc, which did get good marks at the time, But they eventually, like around, I think like 2004, 5, 6, they put an extended version on DVD along with like Crimson Tide and Con Air. Just kind of maybe stir up the double dip type of thing, and threw a couple of featurettes, stuff like that on the disc, whatnot. But watching the theatrical cut for this review, it's so tightly and leanly paced. I can't think that adding more scenes what makes it a better film. I think it would kind of maybe more frivolous, maybe make the pacing a little looser in a certain degree. But with this film, how it's presented as theatrical cut, definitely feels like just on the money. I wouldn't change a damn thing really about this film because it's just such an efficient piece of fantastic filmmaking with a little bit of something to say for itself. Really good type of thing for Tony Scott. I think he really was a fantastic filmmaker that really just got overshadowed a little bit by Ridley because he really did all those kind of really big prestige films. He did very splashy things that really kind of deep themes and contemplative things here and there, and really got kind of the Oscar sort of attention in some places here and there. Tony had a lot of great stuff to offer. So if you haven't watched a Tony Scott film in a long time, pick one out, go ahead and watch it. Enemy of State's definitely one to definitely check out if you haven't checked it out in a while, because again, themes of it have become very prevalent in the times since it's been released, and great type of stuff overall. So guys, I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts about Enemy of the State and Tony Scott's career in general. But guys, there's always the thumbs up, the comments. Super thanks for you to contribute anything monetarily to the channel directly through YouTube, also Patreon. But guys, sharing the links around and subscribing if you haven't does fantastic things to make sure everything's healthy around here. And we know exactly what you guys want to see and kind of fuel the algorithm, just like make things healthy around here. So guys, thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.